and welcome to A Cup of Conversation here on BRT2 TV. Today on the programme I have a very serious and very interesting subject. It's all about women's health, and I'm very honoured to have two doctors with me here in the studio, and we have Dr. Nilüfer Rahmioğlu Ramiz and also Dr. Mevhibe Hocaoğlu. They are from, well, universities of Oxford in the UK and also East Metro University here in the TRNC. And we're talking about women's health, and they are part of COHERE, which is actually the Cyprus Women's Health Research Initiative. So it's time to get serious with women's health, a very interesting subject. So ladies, welcome to the programme.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming today all the way from East Metro University in Gazi Malta. And it's a very hot day, but we are now cooling down in the studios. But we have a very serious subject. First of all, Nilüfer, welcome back to BRTK.
Yeah.
We met on the radio a few months ago. I think, was it April, May time?
Probably late April.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you came onto the radio with another partner of yours, Turci Karadeli, and she's in the UK at the moment. But you are actually a doctor, and you got your doctorate in the UK?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, please.
Sure. So I've studied in the US, and then I got my PhD in the UK in King's College, London, at St Thomas's Hospital. And I've been working in Oxford University for the past 7 years. Well, not recently actually, it's been 4 years. 4 years ago we decided to move back to Cyprus with my family. And given the nature of my work, I could continue working in the UK and traveling back and forth. So I've been doing that for the past 4 years. So I still work in Oxford University, and every month I go there for a week to 10 days and then come back to Cyprus, and I have a home office where I work from. And we've been in Cyprus for the past 4 years. And my specialty is basically epidemiology. And to define that, epidemiology is basically investigating disease distributions and looking at health conditions in populations. If the distribution of health conditions, for example, in a village is very much higher than expected, we go and investigate for the reasons. That's one very simple way of putting it, actually. So I've been doing research in various women's health conditions and investigating their causes and reasons in various countries and populations for the past 7 years. So
very interesting. Yeah. Very busy life, going back to the UK once a month for a few days. That's a very busy lifestyle, but very interesting. Yeah. And Dr. Mevhibe Hocaoğlu, welcome to the programme. We've just recently met. And can you tell us about yourself, please? You are a Turkish Cypriot as well, like Nilüfer.
Definitely.
And what's your background, please?
Thank you, John. So nice to be here. So my background is quite similar to Nilüfer's, actually. I've studied in the US as an undergraduate, and then my postgraduate, I did my master's in Oxford in international public health, which is something that we have in common with Nilüfer in terms of being an epidemiologist. And my PhD was also from the UK, from University of Reading. I did psychometrics, and psychometrics is basically measurement science. It means I am a specialist in measuring unmeasurable concepts such as quality of life. And I had the great honor to be working with Nilüfer in this project, giving support on behalf of EMU, where I have been lecturing since 2012 in faculties of medicine and Department of Psychology.
Fantastic. So two very busy, active ladies in the world of science here. I'm very honoured to have you both here today. I know you must be very busy with your project. So you came together on this project, which is, how did COHERE start? How did the Cyprus Women's Health Research Initiative begin?
Yeah, so actually this story goes back to 2011. That was the time when I was thinking about coming back to Cyprus, trying to see what kind of interesting research questions would be in our country to investigate. And at the time we pulled out all the disease rates that's been collected by the Ministry of Health in the public hospitals. And we wrote a commentary on it in European Journal of Public Health. And it's titled A Call for Research and Action in Northern Cyprus, because the scenario we came across with was quite disappointing. We've got great disparities when it comes to knowing what kind of health problems we have in our population, because the data is not being collected in an extensive and a standardized way. And health statistics are very important when putting together health strategies, for example. So it started with that. And there are actually, it's not that easy to find research funding to establish something or start investigating any hypothesis, really. And we thought that what we really need to do first is actually see what the current picture is like in Cyprus in terms of what's the overall disease rates are, as well as whether certain conditions are seen more commonly in certain regions of the island, and etc. So this project came about as an idea then, and we've spent 3 years trying to get together the seed money, the seed fund, basically to bring the idea alive. So for 3 years, I actually started this on my own initially, and I've started visiting big firms like Telsim Vodafone, for example, who is our communication sponsor currently, and telling people about the importance of doing such a project and trying to get them to take part and sponsor the project. So that lasted around 2.5 years. And during the procedure, we also established Cyprus Women's Health Research Association, which is COHERE in short. That was last year in March. And then through the association, we also started doing some fundraising activities, again supporting this project. So what we actually aimed with this project was to look at women's health conditions in women between the ages of 18 and 55. And this is just a step, starting point for us. So investigating and collecting data from individuals in such detail that it's possible to do good analysis requires collection of extensive data sets. So you have to start from a certain section. So here for us the determining factor was an age group. So ages of 18 and 55 is basically when women are reproductive. Initially we would ideally like to go down to when actually women, when they first start to menstruate, to the age of 13. But then there is a lot of issues with getting ethical consent. When girls are not 18 yet, you have to get parental consent and etc. The way you should ask questions should vary a lot to adolescents and etc. So it's a different age group. Hence we have the year of 18 as a minimum. And then we went up to 55 because we're interested in health conditions that are mainly seen in the premenopausal women, or also women who are going through menopause. Because after menopause, most of the conditions actually change. With the hormone levels changing and etc., you start seeing certain conditions becoming more prevalent, or certain conditions that are apparent in premenopause actually disappear in menopause. So we said that let's start with this age group, and we designed the project to reach 10% of women living in northern Cyprus between these age limits. And that corresponds to basically 8,000 women. So what this project aims to do is collect data on all sorts of women's health conditions. So it's not only gynecological conditions. So when we say women's health, most instantly we think about gynecological conditions, but actually it's not only that. So any condition that is more prevalent in women compared to men, for example, migraines, or chronic pain conditions, or thyroid problems. These are more prevalent in women compared to men. So the project is collecting data on a wide variety of conditions and disease. And what it aims to do is create basically a map of women's health conditions. So we're visiting every region on the island, which we can talk about more in terms of how we're doing the data collection. But what we would like to end up with in the end of the project is a map of disease distributions. So if in a certain region we're observing a disease or a symptom even to be more prevalent, we'd like to know that so that we can investigate the why. Is it due to some environmental factor? Is there an environmental pollution problem? Is it some dietary problem, or is it something to do with the genetics?
Very, very interesting.
So very
Lots to talk about here on the program. obviously you are working for Oxford University as well, but with EMU.
Exactly. So we should talk about that as well. So
Yeah.
that at that time period, and then so at that time period, I went and met with the rector of EMU and told them about the project and see if we can establish an academic collaboration between Oxford and EMU.
Yep.
And they were very positive about it. And it took us a few months to establish how and why, how is it going to work, and etc. And we have basically established an official collaboration with them. And we have a big team in EMU. And Mevhibe Hoca is leading that team.
Yes, so back to you, Mevhibe Hoca, as Nilüfer calls you. Dr.
Well, now that we're talking about science and work,
Yes.
yeah.
Dr. Nilüfer and Dr. Mevhibe in the studio today with us at BRTK. So here comes Nilüfer Hanım, that you knew from before as well, from all the academic work from back in the UK and everything. And so your approach to maybe join with this research. How has it been for you? So how have you become involved with this wonderful extensive research that is being carried out at the moment in the TRNC?
Yep, John. I mean, it is, Nilüfer has pointed out that actually North Cyprus is a world of unexplored data. I mean, routine data is nothing that we collect. There is so much data, so much interesting research questions that you can ask. So I'm very lucky that a person like Nilüfer Hoca has come along with this amazing idea, with sponsorships, with all the initiatives. And I'm very thankful that EMU is a university that has actually seen this as a great opportunity. I mean, as you know, as being an academic in Cyprus is quite difficult because we're usually overburdened with teaching responsibilities. So having the opportunity to take part in a collaborative project, having to actually exercise all the things that we have learned is something of great importance, I think. So EMU is giving support to the project in terms of providing field workers or research assistants. So mostly students, master and PhD postgraduate students, and also there we have a team of volunteer students or student assistants as well. And I mean, it is not only a great opportunity for us to take part in this collaborative work, which will produce many publications, so quite satisfaction in terms of research, but also we are giving our students quite a lot of opportunity to take part in an amazing research, which will help them with their careers, which reflects on their CVs. So EMU is giving quite a good support in terms of providing transportation, so renting a car basically, with promotional materials, fueling support, as well as academic support.
Very interesting. So would you say that there is a lack of maybe scientific research in general about, you know, gathering information, data, statistics about people in general? I mean, you're doing the women's side of it, for instance, at the moment, with a certain age range of 18 to 55, but sorry, excuse me, does that mean that also there's lacking of information about men in that age range, about children, the elderly? So really this is the opportunity maybe to do some more research. I mean, do hospitals not have any data to give to you at all?
I mean, that's a very good point, actually, John. There is data, but data, if it is not collected in a standardized way, it's a little bit meaningless, it could be misleading. So data is being collected, actually. For example, I was part of cancer project, and so has looked at those statistics. So there are good efforts being put in to collect data, but actually I think as data has to be representative, it has to be sensitive. For example, the Women's Initiative, the Women's Health Research Initiative is an exemplary project in that way, because it has been designed to collect data from a representative sample from all of the population, including people who have been living in Cyprus for at least 5 years. So, for example, I mean, I don't think much data or any data is being collected on the expatriate population, which has been living in Cyprus for quite a long while.
Yes.
I mean, they are being exposed to the same environmental exposures as we are, as people living in Cyprus are. So it is in that way, representative, inclusive data is quite lacking. Actually, we have a lot of little studies that's representing some part of the population, but not.
Yeah.
We are quite lacking data collected from a representative sample, reflecting real variation.
One of the biggest disparities I assume we have is the governmental versus the private medical separation, for example. So
Yeah.
all the data that's been collected by the Ministry of Health is from the governmental hospitals,
And not
for
the
example,
private.
not
Yeah.
the private. So we've got almost no information in terms of what's happening
Yeah.
with the patients who are seeking private
Yeah.
healthcare.
Yeah.
And that's a big majority. It's a significant amount
Yeah.
in this country.
I
Therefore,
mean, legislation is lacking for data sharing, actually. That's a
Exactly.
huge obstacle standing in the way. So even though the private universities might want to share their data, there's a lot of issues with, is it legal? Is there legislation behind it? There is not, actually.
That's very interesting you should mention that, because I remember one of our colleagues here, he unfortunately died of a heart attack. Hakan Çakmak, he was a very well-respected man who did a lot of great programs for art and culture. And there was a lot of conflict about whether he went to his own doctor or went private, and maybe if there is a sharing system, an online computer database where everyone can see each patient, you know, a doctor can say, well, let me look at your records, and can go into any record that the patient has with any doctor in hospital.
Yep.
I think it's very important. It's a big majority that you're saying that is lacking if you're not including private hospitals. And very importantly, you said that this research, in fact, this is one of the reasons why we're inviting these ladies here, is because the expat community, British, American, German, anybody
Yep.
can be part of this research. Any females aged between 18 and 55 who have been living here for at least 5 years can be part of this research, so it includes everybody. I want to ask you, Nilüfer, which quite interested me when you were saying about the geography in different areas, but Cyprus is a small island. Will there be a difference, do you think, or have you found a difference even? I mean, you've been doing this for the past 6-7 months now, this research. For somebody living in the Karpaz to somebody in Lefker or Güzelyurt, I mean, is there a big environmental factor, or is it genetics? Maybe there are some villages who have where people just marrying each other, relatives or
Yeah.
cousins, and then that's a genetic factor. I mean, are you finding things like this at the moment?
so we haven't looked at the data yet, and we don't know the answer to that question. It's just purely because no one has looked at it before.
Yeah, just collecting at the moment.
Yeah, so we've started data collection in January, and hopefully we'll find that out. But basically, to answer your question based on other experience, as you say, it is a small country. Therefore, we're talking about 300,000 individuals. I mean, close enough as an estimate.
Yeah.
But there are certain environmental problems that we already know about. For example, in certain regions, one example is, for example, is Gemikona, where there is the Cyprus mines heavy metal pollution
Yes.
in the ground.
Copper mines.
There. So, for example, in that region, there is a very unique environmental pollution. Or people also talk about the electric terminal in Alagadi, for example. A lot of air
Power
pollution.
station, a lot of power station, yeah.
So, or in the, there are certain villages. Sometimes you see they make the the headlines in news saying that X village has, for example, X cancer amounts really high. It's observed to be like that.
Yeah.
So most of the time, for example, cancer is a common complex condition. What we mean by that, it comes about by a combination of certain genetic factors as well as environmental factors. So it's not purely because of a certain environmental factor or purely because of a certain genetic factor. It's a combination of all. So genetics is another important part of it, and we don't know the ethnic background or our population. Therefore, we don't really know whether certain genetic factors actually predispose us to certain conditions more in this population or not. Whether we would observe genetic variety between villages, we don't know, but maybe. But for example, Regina, for example, we know sort of from anthropology or history has a certain different ethnic background. So there might be some variation in terms of genetics. But what I would assume is it's mainly environmental factors in different regions that would bring about the differences in disease rates. Whether there would be a difference is a question to be answered.
That's going to be the results and the conclusion of your research later on when it's all finished. So this project began in January, you were saying, and EMU, very happy, very proud to be part of this project. You've given lots of financial and also manpower help with your students, which is very, very important because you said at least 8,000. That is a big number, isn't it, really, when you think about it? Research, I mean, when I read research in newspapers online, oh, you know, a few hundred here or maybe, I don't know, 1,000. But 8,000 is a very, very ambitious number. So how's it working out? I mean, what's happening? Are your students divided up into groups and going out to different areas, to different workplaces, collecting the data? How's it working?
So actually, Nilüfer Hoca is the principal investigator, is coordinating this tremendous task of assigning. So every week, basically, there is a number of places that we get permissions from beforehand, and basically our student research assistant team visits these sites actually and collects data. But it has been amazing. In the past 6 months we have managed to collect data from more than 2,000 women. So we are getting there. The student assistants, so the undergraduate students are basically based at EMU in our project office, and they're basically doing data entry. So the data actually we are collecting electronically. So we have an amazing online database through which so much easier, very user-friendly. A lot of investment has gone into building it. But we also have paper versions, and people sometimes feel more comfortable filling in paper versions. So we have a lot of data to be entered. So that's what the undergraduate team is doing at EMU. The graduate, postgraduate team is basically with the volunteers from the association, not only our students, but other volunteers from the civil society organizations and the women's civil society organization. They are also providing a lot of support.
Excellent.
And we basically have 4 research assistants from EMU, 2 of them working full-time. So every day they're visiting a different workplace or a household at times and telling women about the project. If they're interested, obviously it's all voluntary based. They get to, and you've got actually there.
Yes, we met when you came to BRT. We have a lot of female workers here at BRT, and you came with your team. That's how we met the first time a few months ago. And it's actually an anonymous questionnaire, isn't it?
It is.
So no one has to worry about any data getting back to outside or to other people. And you confirm. I mean, it's in English, and there are lots of important questions being asked. Some of them quite personal to women, but again, once again, you don't have to answer things that you don't feel comfortable with answering. Is what you want to share, and so it's not just collecting the data, as you said. It's entering the data into the database. It's a lot of hard work. When do you envisage completing all this work? I mean, is it still going to be another couple of years, you think?
So January 2020 is when we aim to finish data collection.
So 2 years.
And that's just data collection. As you say, we're collecting quite rich data here. So it'll take years and years to actually analyze this data. The first publications of the general results, let's say, will probably will start coming out towards the end of 2020. But to give maybe a bit of more taste of what we're doing in the field is to tell you our story in what happened in the past 6 months. When we first started data collection, our vision was to do household visits mainly. So sampling and arranging the representative sample is a big part of this project. So before we visit a certain region, we've got a target. So we know, for example, how many women we'd like to reach in Tatlısu, for example. So what we do is we've got a rotation basically, and we don't want to introduce any seasonal biases as well. So we want to visit every region in every season.
Right.
A good example of that, for example, if you go and ask people about their health in spring, a lot of people will start talking about allergies because that's when it's more prevalent. So we'd like to do your sampling all around the year, to not to introduce any biases.
Right.
Originally we thought we'd do mainly household surveys and, knock on every door, do it in a randomized order so we get a good random sample.
Yeah.
And it turned out quite quickly in the first few weeks that, working women, it's impossible to reach them at home. Even if we find them at home out of hours or in the evenings, they're too busy, trying to cook something or, things, because we want each participant to give us around 30 minutes. And it's a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
So then we sort of changed strategy a bit and we started visiting workplaces. So we get in touch with basically workplaces, telling them about our project. If they're happy for us to come and tell the workers about our project. So we go to workplaces. If at all possible, we usually stay there the whole day. And when people have, some spare time, they can come and talk to our research assistants. In some places, we can get them together in a meeting room and tell them about the project all together. But we'll tell them about the project, and then we've got the extensive questionnaire about their medical history, and it goes into depth about mainly pain conditions and mainly pelvic pain. And also about their lifestyle factors. So we ask them to complete the questionnaire. And on top of the questionnaire, we take some measurements. So we measure blood pressure, weight, height, waist, hip circumference. And then there are 2 optional steps to this project. One of them is collecting a saliva sample. And we're collecting saliva samples from women who would like to share this with us. And that is the genetic component of the project. So that's where we're going to send all these saliva samples to Oxford. And then we're going to get the gene maps of these women and start investigating the the causal hereditary factors that make us more susceptible to certain conditions. The second optional bit is the clinical follow-up. So we do have a clinical follow-up, and we've got currently three gynecologists who are part of the project. In Girne, it's Meryem Alison. In Lefkoşa, it's Güneş Eralp. And then we've got Bahçeli Tüpbebek Hospital, who is actually the other big sponsor of the project at the same time. Right. So they're Murat Bilgin. So we give appointments to our participants, which are free of charge, and they go and see these gynecologists, get a pelvic ultrasound performed to mainly get feedback on their gynecological problems. And that data basically comes to the project, but it's also something to give back to our participants.
They get a copy of the report.
Exactly.
Their own
so
health.
whatever results they have from the ultrasound, they get a result of that to themselves. And saying that, I mean, collecting all this data, it's all anonymized, so we don't collect any personal identifiers. So it's basically they sign a consent form, and the consent form is basically to protect the rights of the participants as well as the project rights. Right. So that the samples they're given, they know where they are going, and they can withdraw from the study at the moment they want to. Yeah. It's basically we are using this data for the purposes that we have set so. Yeah. So once they complete the consent form, they get a unique participant ID, and that's how we know them in the project. So that ID is on the questionnaire. When they go to the gynecologist, they give that ID, and that's how we match their clinical data to the questionnaire data. that's a bit
Very
about
interesting.
the methods. Yeah.
You have a very small promotional video, which is in the Turkish language with English subtitles. And I think we should show this video now to give
That'd
some
be
more
great.
information to our viewers, and then we'll be back after this. Yes, so shall we take a quick break? Watch this video now. That's been prepared by the team, and we'll be back with the doctors right after this. There are 3.5 billion women in the world, and at least one of them is a part of your life. Comprehensive public health studies show that disorders such as depression, anxiety, chronic pain, migraine, and thyroid problems are more prevalent in women. In addition, it was found that the quality of life of 1 in 8 women is highly affected by polycystic ovarian syndrome and endometriosis, and 70% of infertile women have difficulties conceiving because of these diseases. In such diseases, there is a problem of late diagnosis, about 7 to 11 years. In fact, if such diseases are diagnosed on time, the person's quality of life may be significantly improved. The rates of these diseases differ as a result of the varying hereditary and environmental factors between communities. What about Cyprus? Cyprus Women's Health Research Initiative is undertaking a research project to collect this data in our community. The project aims to create women's health map of Cyprus by building up the health profiles of 8,000 women between ages 18 to 55 of the 80,000 women living in North Cyprus. With the obtained results, rate of prevalence and regional distribution of these diseases in our community will be identified, and the environmental and genetic causes of these conditions in our population will be investigated. Awareness level of these diseases will be increased, and development of health strategies based on the collected data will be supported. Show your support to create the first health map of Cyprus. We invite everyone to take part in this project for a more informed, healthier future. Cyprus Women's Health Research Initiative. Very interesting promotional video there, and you are watching a couple conversation with me, your host Can Ghazi, and I'm with Dr. Nilüfer Rahmioğlu Ramiz and Dr. Mevhibe Hocaoğlu, both talking about the Cyprus Women's Health Research Initiative and COHERE and the research they're doing, and it's very, very important. So back together now after that very short informational video there. A lot of hard work, a lot of things have been done so far, and as you said, around 2,000 people already been part of the questionnaire. You still need 6,000 more. You have until January 2020 to complete. You said that you, well, I remember when you came on the radio, you also talked about an event that you held back in May to raise money and also awareness at the same time. It was a 5-kilometre walk-run in Lefkoşa. How did that go? Tell us a bit about that event, please.
It was great. It was great fun, actually. We had around 400 participants, and it was a spring Sunday morning walk-run in the old city of Lefkoşa. And we had families joining in, also some athletics as well, so some people took it very competitively as well. So it was a lot of fun. We had 2 volunteer sport instructors, and we actually warmed up all together, which was a lot of fun with some live music and everyone stretching and whatnot. And we did some good fundraising from that event as well, and I think it was great for the awareness in terms of women's health, and you know, being active for health is also another nice thing. So it was great success. We had a lot of fun, and we actually promoted the project from there. A lot of people who came to the run actually also then became participants on the project as well, or they got in touch with their workplace or their neighborhood and invited us over to come and do some recruitment in their places as well. So yeah.
So a very important event, and I'm sure you probably have in the future more events to bring awareness, because we have a long time ahead of us, a long, still a long road still in front of us to complete all this research. Dr. Mevhibe, you know, as EMU, how can we bring more awareness to this subject, because you know, you're at the university, your students, the academics there who are studying with you, they all know about it. But the population now, I mean, you're here to talk about it, but I'm not sure everyone knows about what's going on. And it's very important to have research, isn't it, amongst the community, what's happening with us health-wise. How can we, maybe with this research, you can tell us what you will do with the research a little bit later on. But obviously, once you get the research results, maybe then you can go back to the community and say, this is what you need to do, or this area needs this help. I mean, can EMU now lead the way for the future for other projects like this? Do you think there'll be more projects like this in the future?
I definitely think so, John. I mean, universities are great institutions for education, but a part of a big responsibility that falls on them is actually research. And good research, very well designed research, and research questions actually how can I say, they even reproduce more and more better research. So I think EMU is quite aware of this, and I mean, public engagement is I think a big responsibility for the universities. We have so many universities here, so it's a lot of academicians that are very well trained. So it is critical, if you want to keep such people, keep people like Nilüfer here, keep people like me here, it's critical for the universities to take initiative and not to be afraid of collaboration, because this is a collaboration with a very respectful university, but it's also a collaboration between a civil society organization and private sponsors. So that is something that where education or universities should be moving to. Our job is not only to educate kids in a classroom. We have to give them the opportunities to take part in projects such as this, so public engagement projects. And universities, I think, that thrive on this, that are successful in this, will even be more successful. So this project sets an example. EMU sets an example to other universities as well. This is something that could be done. Teamwork is something that could be done. You can have multidisciplinary teams. I'm a psychometrician. Nilüfer Hoca is an epidemiologist plus a principal investigator from another university. So this is possible. Even though North Cyprus is kind of like seen as a black spot, it's actually north of the Green Line, where data is missing. So there's so many opportunities. For example, it was only until recently that prescription has become compulsory. So having a prescription, getting antibiotics. So it's like a natural lab for 50 or so years, 40 since our division. From the south part, we have been using antibiotics right and left. So there are so many amazing questions that could be asked, and so many interesting links.
What are the effects of this usage of unprescribed antibiotics? There might be an effect on the health, which now leads me to the question, after all this talk about research, what do you want to do with all the data that you get? How will this, you know, obviously, as you said, you're with Oxford University in the UK and with East Mediterranean University in the TRNC. You are coming together, but what will the results then be used for? How will they be utilised?
Sure. Basically, we'll do the analysis again in collaboration with EMU, together with Oxford University. We're going to get a PhD student, again sponsored from this project, who will be a resident, who will need to come to Oxford for the data analysis to get all the training and end up with actually a PhD from there, who'll work on this analysis. But what we'll get is basically is all the results. So we're hoping to get a women's health map. So we'll actually know which conditions or which symptoms are more prevalent in which areas. And this will be a stepping stone for us to investigate the reasons for disease that are more prevalent in certain regions. In terms of the genetic findings, we'll know what our ethnic background is. That will help us to see whether there are different genetic factors that make us more susceptible to certain conditions. It's a study where we're basically creating a reference to move and ask more hypothesis-driven questions in this population. And what we're also working together with the Ministry of Health on this. So we're reporting back all our findings to the Ministry of Health. And there the association has also some role. So with the association, what we'd like to do is do some awareness raising based on this data coming from this population to the people of this, community basically, and also communicate with the Ministry of Health and to sort of illustrate how this kind of data can be used to build health strategies in the future.
Very, very interesting, very important research work here as well. Before we conclude the interview, we touched about the expat community. If anybody out there watching now wants to be a part, now it's like, instead of you going out to your sample, maybe there's a group of people out there who would like to help you with your research, a group of women who would like to be, can they contact you?
Yes,
Is
definitely.
there a way, is it possible for maybe associations or groups women aged between 18 and 55, we're calling out to you now, ladies, if you would like to support Nilüfer and Mevhibe and the teams working behind the scenes with this research, would that be acceptable for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we're actually currently, our to-do list for the coming few weeks is to get in touch with all the societies that are the expats are part of, so we can reach that community and spread the word. So if anyone would like to get in touch with us, if they have a group of friends or neighbors that like to take part in the project, we can give our phone numbers. They can find us on social media. We do have a Facebook page, so if they search for COHERE initiative, they'll find us. Similarly in Instagram, and also we've got email address, which is, I can say it out loud here, so it'll be cohere_KISAA@gmail.com. Or they can reach us on our phone numbers, and I'll give that out as well now. So 0548 860 8314.
Also, let's say my niece, for instance, my youngest niece, she's nearly 20. She's studying at the moment in the UK. If somebody's watching online now or watching on the satellite, they are Turkish Cypriot or they have been living here, but they are currently not here at the moment. Can they be part of the project?
Definitely they can. So in actually 2 weeks' time, we'll have the English version of the questionnaire online.
So it will be online, and they can fill it up online?
We haven't. So in 2 weeks' time, it'll be live online.
Fantastic.
So we'll be spreading the news through our Facebook page again, so they can use the link in their own time, go ahead and complete the questionnaire. So as long as they're Turkish Cypriots, so citizens of TRNC and living abroad, they can take part in the project.
So there's no excuse for the ladies out there not to get involved with this. We want everyone to support this research. Like we said again, it's COHERE, it's the Cyprus Women's Health Research Initiative, and it really is very, very important. I think this is going to be maybe the first of many, many projects. Research always asks more questions than it answers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then you have to make more questions, more questionnaires, more research going off. So I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting time. What's the atmosphere like at the moment? 6 months or so down the line since it began, are you still enthusiastic and optimistic about the future for this project?
Yeah, we are. We're quite happy with reaching actually 2,000 women in 6 months, because we weren't sure how people were going to take it initially, because it's a lengthy questionnaire, as you said, and it requires some dedication to complete it out. But women are quite positive, and they do see the importance of collecting such data. So we're quite positive about it, and we're, we keep going, and hopefully in a year and a half we'll reach our aim. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I want to say thank you very much for coming in today and sharing all this information with us. And thank you for coming today from East Metro University as well. And if somebody wants to find you there, they can. Which department can they go to? Where is the actual office space for this research? It's in the
Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Right.
It's actually at the ground floor, so it's very easy to find.
Right.
So we are always there. We always have our students, student assistants there. So very easy to find.
So anyone can come and see you, maybe volunteer to help.
Definitely.
Or volunteer to fill out a questionnaire. Definitely. And again, you are back and forth from the UK to here now, but I'm sure even Oxford University is probably excited to find out what the results are.
Yes,
Because it's such an unknown area, isn't it?
So, I mean, from the Oxford perspective, this is quite an interesting population for us because we've never looked at women's health conditions in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Right.
So it'll be the first, actually, women's health data coming from the Eastern Mediterranean. So it's terribly interesting for us on that perspective too.
So I'm sure there'll be lots of papers in journals coming out when all this is done. But I want to say thank you very much for coming in today. Like I always say to my guests, it's very, very humble humbling for me to meet such distinguished people like yourselves, because you are very, very busy. But I thank you for the time that you spent here today with us, informing our viewers. I wish you all the best. Please come back again and let us know how it all goes. And I'm sure that you'll come up with some really good, interesting research. Once again, on Facebook and Instagram, what do we look for your name?
COHERE Initiative.
COHERE Initiative.
Yep.
And that's what you have to write, COHERE Initiative, and you will get into the research. And if someone knocks on your door and says, can we have your time, just spend half an hour filling out this very interesting questionnaire, and you'll be part of a very, very interesting research being conducted for the first time here at the TRNC. So, Dr. Nilüfer Rahmioğlu Ramiz and Dr. Mevhibe Hocaoğlu, thank you very, very much for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
And
Thank you for having us.
send all our best wishes to your students and to all the other academics working hard with this project.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we've come to the end of A Cup of Conversation, wishing you all a very healthy week. Until the next time we're here in the studios of BRCK, take care and go well. Bye-bye.